breaking down all the biggest games in our area. This is Sports Talk with Kendrick and Dusty on Wave Now. Delivered by Burrow's Pizza. Yeah, it's that good.
And just like that, we have an open.
The GoFundMe worked. Thank you, everybody, for your support.
Thank you, everybody, for your minimal contributions.
You guys did nothing, but you know what? We love you still.
We love you anyway. Thank you so much for joining us whenever we do this, because we've had some very good numbers, and we really appreciate every one of you who's tuned in to watch our nonsense. We still don't have a background. But we do have an open.
The open was awesome, man. That was thank you to everybody that was able to put that together. That looks great.
And most importantly, thank you, Beer Nose.
Yes.
This is Kendrick and Dusty Talk Sports, sponsored by Beer Nose. So once again, thank you to them for sponsoring so much of what we do around here. Beer Nose has been a great partner to work with here in sports. Speaking of sports,
we got a lot of them.
We've got a lot of them going on right now. As you know, Friday night, U of L kicks off their season against Georgia Tech down in Atlanta. My man Dusty, you're heading down there tomorrow. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to actually see what this offense and what this new team looks like. A lot of excitement surrounding this team.
I think the most interesting part about all this, you're going to have a lot of eyes on the offense, of course. You have a ton of transfers and Jeff Brom. Everybody's going to be watching that. But I'm also just curious, this is the first time you get a new unit out there. They're playing in an incredible stadium on a national stage. It's the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And not only are we watching a new U of L team, we're going to see a lot of new rule changes too. It's a start of new, fresh beginnings across the board. Really intrigued with this Brom offense. It's something I don't think a lot of people have been talking about. It moves fast, it operates quickly. There's a rule change that's going to go into effect, and I didn't really think about this much until recently.
Yeah, you noticed it in week 0. You're talking about the clock.
The clock, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so now all of a sudden, it's something to consider with Brom's offense. Like not only brand new offense, but new team and new rule that they're going to have to adjust to. So just a lot of outside thoughts and ideas have been thrown out there about this game. We finally get a game physically played now at this point, because we've been talking about this for 4 months.
Essentially, what this new rule does, it basically takes away possessions. There's going to be fewer plays in the game because of this, because the clock will not stop after first downs except inside of 2 minutes. On the one hand, I like it because it does speed the game up, but I did like having the extra possession because it adds entry. When it's a blowout, then let's get this game over with. But when it's a close game and it's a tightly matched game, which I think Friday night's game is going to be a tightly matched game, you want to see the extra possessions. But it'll be interesting to see how these teams adjust to it. It's going to be interesting to see both, because these are two teams that we really don't know much to expect.
Not at all.
Georgia Tech's bringing in a transfer quarterback. They were up and down last season. Like some games they look really, really good. There's some games they look really, really bad. So it's going to be interesting to see what Georgia Tech brings out on the field. But of course, it's going to be even more interesting for us around here to see what this Jeff Brom offense looks like in the ACC.
I'm really intrigued by all of course, what we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks. And with that rule change, you brought up a good point there. You had a chance to come back. What if U of L, or for that matter, what if Georgia Tech starts out slow, right? Well, all of a sudden, in game 1 of your season where you're still just kind of trying to get a feel for things, the opportunity of coming back, the opportunity of, maximizing on plays, it kind of makes every valuable play even that much more valuable.
Right. It makes every possession even more valuable.
Yeah.
And, this is also the game 1 for Jeff Brom as the head coach of his alma mater. You got to think there's going to be some butterflies and some emotions going into that. And we asked him about that on Monday at his first game week press conference.
Without question, my nerves will be gone. You want to do well. You want to try to win the football game. You want to please a lot of people. You want to get off to a good start, and that's always going to be the goal. So, you have to go back and go through things and make sure you're as ready as you can be. But then you've just got to go out there and play and coach and be positive with your players and build their confidence and help them achieve their best.
He basically admitted, I'm going to be a little bit nervous. I asked Brian Brom the exact same question. And it's like, it's kind of because it is game day. You're more focused on that. You're not thinking as much about that. But they admitted that, it's going to be a little nerve wracking going out there in a totally different position. Because I I remember watching Jeff as a kid, and I've seen him on the staff, and I've seen him throughout his coaching career. But I actually covered Brian when he was in high school, and covered him at U of L. To see him graduate up to this next step in his life, because I mean, I really do think that Brian Brown's going to be a head coach. Sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, he called the game for Purdue when after Jeff had left, and so to see that. I mean, you know they're going to be nervous, but they're going to be ready to go.
It's really a special opportunity for them because this has come full circle. And so, yeah, of course, your life is you have a goal at the end of the day, and you never know where that's necessarily going to take you. You can't ask Brom and have him clearly say, yeah, this is the plan the whole time. But the fact that this is where life has led him, I mean, you have to imagine this is the dream, right? This is where he's wanted to be, and to get back at home and have this opportunity and on a grand stage. There are just so many elements to this. The layers keep kind of coming and growing along the way as we enter our time to Atlanta. But of course you're going to be nervous, and that's the best part about this is, Brom, I think what's really special about him, he does have coach talk. He has a lot of coach talk, but he's also very real. And I love that about him. He's very authentic. And, we've had the chance to talk to him on and off air, and he's just a genuinely good human being and deserves this opportunity. And so does the rest of his family, to be able to have this chance to go coach the team that, quite frankly, was his in the past. It's now his in the present.
And to see the Brom family, how excited they are. Because, you run into it because, it's a million of them. But you run into Oscar everywhere, and he's so excited. And then see their mom and their sister, and then they see Greg. And then I stuck around. I don't know if I told you this, but I stuck around at that Trinity game on Saturday after they were down 17-0. Right. Not because I was thinking they were going to come back because they could not move the ball. I stayed because Brady Brom was at the game. And I'm sitting there, I'm hanging out with Brady the whole time. Yeah. Brady cracks me up because he's 18, going on 35. You would swear he has a mortgage. Yeah, and he's involved in recruiting. He keeps up with the transfer portal more than Jeff does. And
I'm not surprised by that. Yeah.
You've been around Brady for 5 minutes and will not surprise you at all. And, because I've done stuff. I did a story on Brady when they were at Western Kentucky. So I've been talking to Brady since he was like 7 or 8 years old. I mean, like literally talking to Brady. Brady would message me. So to see them back at home and see them involved in the program, it's really fun. We're looking forward to Thursday. Now, I'm not till Friday. Now, Saturday, according to the books, UK has the easiest game of our three main teams between U of L, UK, and IU. But of course, it's much easier than IU's. We'll get to them in a minute. But Kentucky taking on Ball State in their opener. It's going to be a sold-out crowd. This UK is already sold out of their season tickets. And for Kentucky football, that is a major deal that they've already sold out of their season tickets. Of course, Devin Leary's taking over at quarterback there for Will Levis. And expectations are high in Lexington. And they've got some weapons, especially on the outside. You think about Barry and Brown and guys like that. And they've got some weapons, and Kentucky should be exciting this year. I'm
curious to watch this team for a lot of reasons. I think Leary is obviously going to be the attention grabber right there. But we talked about it a little earlier this year. Their offensive line has struggled immensely. Mm-hmm. And so how does that look this year, protecting a quarterback that is coming off of a season-ending injury, right? Mm-hmm. That's a huge deal. What if Leary takes another shot? I mean, you don't want to see that, right. But you have to think about the durability. He's coming off a shoulder surgery, so how well is he going to be able to perform early on in this one? I don't know. It's going to be very intriguing early to watch the dynamic, and not just with Leary, but with his presence with the offensive line, mm-hmm. And also losing the run game that they had this past year. I mean, they were very effective, and so it's going to be that's a hole they have to fill.
Right, losing Chris Rodriguez is going to be huge. They got plenty of running backs back there to try to take up the slack. The one player that I'm most excited to see, I think I've talked about it before, is Isaiah Cummings, the Louisville Male graduate, because he was, for one, as a freshman, Liam Cohen got him the ball his freshman year. He didn't get the ball as much last year because the offense was just run different. Now he's back because he's one of those guys. He's got the speed of a receiver, the size of a tight end. So he's too big to put a DB on him. He's too fast to put a linebacker on him. He's one of those guys that he's just going to give defensive coordinators nightmares because of his size and speed. I'm excited to see how they integrate him back into the offense. I think he could be a key piece for them.
And having a weapon for Leary, too, is going to be huge. I mean, having multiple weapons, they had talked about it, and Stoops is kind of confident, I would say, in this receiving core as opposed to previous years. He said this is the deepest he's had in a long time. That'll help. Having an element like that is huge. And on the defensive side of the ball, you get the returners like J.J. Weaver, who's right there in the thick of things. That's going to be really exciting, to watch a defense run essentially by him. He's going to be the leader in the face, and we'll see if the secondary can hold up the way that, of course, they have in the past. I am curious. Overall, Stoops has been doing this for a while. This is year 11 for him. You've seen a trajectory slowly but surely on its way up. At what point in time in his career is the ceiling, right? I'm genuinely curious about that, because with a transfer portal, you're going to see teams constantly changing year in, year out, right? And so he's got, arguably, a lot of people will say this is the best or second best transfer in Leary. And so where is that expectation? Because you mentioned expectations are high. How high are they? I mean, realistically, are we talking about a team that's going to win 7 to 8 games? Or are we talking about a team that's going to win 9 to 10 games? What is that? It's hard in the SEC to gauge.
Right. That's the thing. It's like it's hard to measure because of wins and losses because the conference is so tough. I mean, they play Alabama and Georgia this year.
Good luck on those.
Good luck with that. But, I mean, I think they're going to be very good. I mean, I don't think their record will be indicative to how good they are. I think that it all begins and ends with the offensive line. If the offensive line is just at least average, because they were so bad last year, if they're at least average, which I think they will be, because they're a prideful bunch, I think they can make some noise. You got your toss-up games like. And I swear, growing up, never in a million years did I think that the Florida game was a toss-up game where I'm picking Kentucky to win that game.
Here you are.
Here we are. And so it's still a lot of unknowns because, like I said, they are replacing a lot.
Yes.
And so we'll see. I mean, but like guys like Dane Keene, who had a great freshman year, Lexington native, and great personality. And they've got some weapons that they can get the ball, and if they use them, because that's been kind of the knock on Mark Stoops' offenses in the past, where they've had weapons, but they were so gung-ho on running the ball, especially when Benny Snell was there, that they had a Josh Ali. I told you that.
Right.
Yeah, I think Josh Ali, who plays for the Atlanta Falcons right now, is going to be a sleeper in the NFL because he just did not get the ball that much in Kentucky. I don't think that's going to be the case anymore, but we shall see. But on Saturday, though, like I said, the last time I checked, I think they were a 26-point favorite against Miami of Ohio. Coach Stoops talked about on Monday how to avoid the upset.
Taking care of the football first and foremost. I mean, we can't go into a game like this and turn the ball over and be sloppy with the football. So we have to protect the football and take care of that.
As you say, turnovers. You have to protect the ball. And it's funny how, as different as basketball and football are, the one thing,
Turnovers.
You have to protect the ball. I think Kentucky will be fine on Saturday. They'll be fine their first 3 games, and then they have that big Florida game. But I do think Kentucky's going to be very good this year because I said those weapons, and they're young. They're only sophomores on the outside, and so they're going to be fun to watch in that Liam Cohen offense, as long as they can offensive line keep Leary upright.
The most exciting thing about this, it's very clear the trajectory for both U of L and Kentucky are up, right? And so the best part is they face each other, of course, at the end of the year. So whose trajectory is higher? Who's the one that's peaking at even the better point in their time right now? We're going to find out.
I think most likely U of L is going to have a better record this year, just schedule-wise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who's the actual better team?
Yeah.
I think we're going to actually have a balanced matchup this year that we haven't had in a couple of years.
I'm excited for that. I really am.
A matchup that we hope is balanced and we hope is close.
It's the best transition you can have for that.
Yeah, I don't know. IU opening the season, and shout out to IU Athletics for the practice video. We're supposed to courtesy them, but we didn't make font, so I'm just verbally courtesying them. Thanks, David. I don't know how they got on screen, but thank you, David, for shouting us up. I'm glad you're enjoying the show. But IU takes on number 3, Ohio State, in their opener. And Ohio State's Heisman Trophy candidate, who's my early season favorite to win the Heisman, Marvin Harrison Jr. in that Ohio State offense. You know, they have a new quarterback, and they already talking about they're going to play more than one quarterback in that game. That's a tough task for Indiana.
The cord's legit, too. I mean, like, if you look at the talent that Ohio State brings back and also the new faces, like, it's going to be just as good. Yes, I know that it's obviously a team that was in the playoffs last year. That Marvin Harrison Jr. is, it's a good enough team to win it, and not just make it, but win it every year. And they have 2 of the top receivers in the entire country, you know? And so you talk about a new quarterback having the opportunity to throw to Marvin Harrison Jr., who can make a play virtually anywhere. They had really just one problem game last year, and that was against Michigan. And even against Georgia, they stacked up better than anybody else in the country against Georgia. So I just think it's a well-coached team. That is a really tough draw. In the Big Ten, you know you're going to face somebody tough. You know you're going to have a hard cycle. But that is just a brutal opener for
right. Like the Hoosiers couldn't get like Indiana State or somebody like that to open the season with. The Big Ten didn't do them any favors.
Not at all.
And not to mention their games on national television also. So, but we heard from Tom Allen, also heard from Tom Allen on Monday, and he basically broke down. He said that, you know, the key to pulling off the upset is just being mature.
It's preparation, it's confidence, it's playing at a high level of hey, you know what? They make a play, we got to flush it, we got to play the next play. You know, we make a play ourselves, we got to flush it, we got to play the next play. And that maturity. And we do have some new faces, but some of these guys have played football, you know, quite a bit.
So as you can see, Tom Allen's voice is already in midseason form.
Coach talk at its max.
But he's right though. Going into games like this, you know Ohio State's going to make plays. You got to put it behind. You cannot let it. You can't dwell on it. You have to have a short memory. And even when you make plays, you have to have amnesia. You cannot dwell on we just made a great play. It's vice versa when you make a mistake. You gotta go play the play. You can't keep dwelling on one play. You got to go play by play by play. Hopefully with the shortened game, you shorten the possessions Ohio State has, and maybe you can pull off the upset. It's a tough task, though. But, you know, they've played Ohio State tough before in the past. The game is at least in Bloomington. And so you have that going for you. It's a tough task for Indiana.
It's just hard to face off against a team like this initially when you're trying to kind of jumpstart your program in a new direction or in just a positive direction for that matter. And opening against Ohio State, that is as tough as it gets. Like there's nothing that's more difficult than opening against Ohio State and Alabama, Georgia. And so, yeah, unfortunately their draw is just really brutal initially. And, you know, you hope for IU, win or lose, that they learned something here from this game.
And you want them to come out healthy.
You want them to come out healthy, learn from your team a little bit of where, you're stacking up. The measuring stick, it doesn't get higher than this, right? So on one hand, you could say, it's Ohio State. On the other hand, you could say, okay, unfortunately, it's a conference game. You know, you wish it wasn't.
But this is an opportunity.
But it's an opportunity.
Right.
And so how do you stack up? What's that look like when you're facing the best team in the country? Where are your issues? Because they'll get exposed. I mean, this is the game that those problems get exposed. Mm-hmm. So it can make you a stronger program by, playing a type of game like this.
And shout out to Tom Allen. He's one of my favorite coaches in this because he is brutally honest. But those games are this weekend. But of course, the NFL is coming, and we had actually news today. Joe Burrow for the Cincinnati Bengals returned to practice today. We've seen him running around on the field during preseason warm-ups anyway. So you knew he was going to be back in time for the season to start. But regardless, it's great to see Burrow back out there, back in uniform and back practicing and getting ready for the season.
I thought it was very interesting that they weren't trying to address the backup quarterback situation all that much. You kind of had some confidence that he was healthier than people maybe led on to. And Coach Taylor didn't really mention much about his health after the sustained injury in practice. But you look at him right there. I mean, he looks completely back to normal for the most part. And the brace is off. He was walking around with a brace for a while. And you just hope that his offensive line can give him a little bit of a luxury of being safe. Yeah, because oh my goodness,
keep that man upright.
You have to, because like this is the perfect example that Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Nobody will doubt that. Nobody will disagree with that. But a quarterback lifespan really depends on the protection that they get from the offensive line. That's just the truth of it all, right? And so we talked about it with Devin Leary, even more so in the NFL because it's just that much faster. The Bengals have got to protect this man at all costs. And, this was a scare, no doubt. Thank goodness he's healthy and at least appears to be healthy. It looks like hopefully he'll be a week 1 go, it seems.
It looks like it.
You just have to hope that the offensive line can help carry him through that because he'll get you to where you need to go. And that offensive attack, when you have guys like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and, the rushing
Mixon.
game. Mixon's incredible, So it's just keep him healthy. Don't let him take the cheap shots, the hits that he's been taking all of his NFL career thus far.
This division is so exciting this year between him, the Bengals, the Ravens, the Browns are coming back. I mean, I say what you want about Deshaun Watson and him struggling last year. The guy hadn't played in a couple of years. Yeah. He was a little rusty. He's going to be much better this year. And even the Steelers, as much as I can't stand the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're going to be good.
Yeah.
Like I say, Pickens is going to be a heck of a combination to watch. It's going to be fun to watch. That division, I think, is by far the best division. I know the AFC East is getting a lot of attention just because of Aaron Rodgers, who has failed in the playoffs at home multiple times, multiple years in a row.
It's a lot of hype. It's probably way too much hype. Yeah.
But I am excited to see the Dolphins, see what they do with Tua, if they can keep Tua upright. Another one. If you can keep him healthy with those weapons. I mean, that's the fastest offense in football. It'll be interesting to see what they can do. The AFC is just so loaded, and then the NFC is not. As a lifelong Cowboys fan, I'm not overly confident on how good they're going to be. I think the defense is going to be legit, but they're still the third best team in the league, in the conference, behind the Eagles and 49ers. And take your pick on that because I'm not as high on Purdy coming in as the 49ers apparently are, because I'm like, okay, once these teams get film on Purdy, let's see.
All of a sudden,
it's got to change.
His weapons are insane. He does have
you got Chris McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, George Kittle led me to my fantasy football championship.
And then you have Ayuk somehow too, who Ayuk helped me in fantasy football. That combo, man, that's where it is. It's fantasy football season, by the way. If you can't tell, this is the exciting part, man. You get.
I've got drafts. I need to get on a couple of people because I'm supposed to have. We got our draft coming up, and then I've got two other leagues where I'm like, we haven't even talked about the draft yet. I'm like, we kind of need to do that this week.
Consensus 1 through 3, is it Jefferson, Chase, and McCaffrey? Jefferson, McCaffrey, Chase. You kind of go any of those 3,
and like any of those 3, and really and truly, I think you throw Lamar up there. Because the rushing numbers you get, and now he's got weapons. He's going to be a pretty good fantasy football
I think
pick.
He's a safe pick. I did an auction league the other day. We get $200.
I'm a big fan of the auction league. They take forever.
It does, but you get the team you want, right? Like you get the team you want. And if you ever do an auction league, best advice: go money on the top 3 guys that you want. And then sit back and relax, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the key. Get the depth at the end, but make sure you get some top heavy talent that probably goes in the first and second round only. So that's what I did. I ended up getting Travis Kelce, threw some bank at Kelce. I believe he's a league winner all the time. Did that. Got Lamar for $15, which I thought was a pretty good buy, actually.
Steal. Yeah, that's a good one.
In $200 bet, I paid a lot on Kelce, man. I got Kelce for $54.
Yeah, that's about right.
It's kind of safe. Jamar Chase was going for 66, and I'm like, if you're talking about a guy that's getting picked 2-3 picks later in standard leagues, I'm paying $10, $12 less. Like I feel like that's good value. And then I got Jalen Waddle for 29. So you're looking at that across the board. It's like, okay, I can work with that. But the guy that's concerning is Jonathan Taylor right now.
Right. I don't understand obviously there's more to that story than we're finding out. I don't understand what the Colts are doing This is your best player.
By a mile.
This is your best player.
He's like your only good player.
And yeah, because the verdict is still out on the quarterback. And so, and then immediately naming him the starter with Anthony Richardson, the starter, is kind of weird to me. I'm like, I would think I would start Gordon Minshew to start the season because Minshew's a good quarterback.
Minshew was legit going all the way from Wazoo to Philadelphia. Had some opportunity. I don't understand it. I don't really understand what the Colts are doing. It's hard to sit here and, you see teams that are really well run. Like I feel like the Niners are a decently run organization.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Eagles have really pushed themselves in the right direction. They got a little lucky though, to be honest, with Jalen Hurts, the way that he's become. Like, I don't think anybody sat there and said, this is going to happen. This is going to be a star quarterback.
It's the guy that lost the starting position in the national championship game and then transferred out, and shouts out to him, the work he put in, obviously, to get to where he is. But you're right. They got, but that's part of the game. You got to get lucky on some of these. Yeah. But they're a very well-run organization. My Cowboys are a reality show.
The Chargers might actually be okay for me. I'm hoping. I'm hoping as a TCU alum and a Chargers fan, this is the coolest year for me because they're literally pairing each other and they're calling themselves the Texas Chargers University because that's what they are. The TCU is just a breeding ground.
TCU is like their AAA affiliate.
It's really bizarre. It's really, really weird. It just happens that I grew up a LT fan, grew up a Chargers fan, went to TCU in that sequence, and now it feels like all the TCU guys, QJ, Darius Davis, RIP to Max Duggan after him getting cut. But, it's. I hope
did he at least sign with them practice?
I would love for that, but that hasn't happened yet. So he looked good in the preseason, and Easton Stick does not look that great. And so I don't really know what the Chargers are doing outside of veteran experience. Stick has been in the league obviously longer. But if you're talking about a guy that's going to give you at least a little more of the edge on the ground at the very least, like some sort of Taysom Hill style, Duggan gives you that. Yeah. I'm not going to argue his arm because his arm is definitely inaccuracy is not his strength per se, as opposed to the rest of the league. But his legs, his speed is as good as it gets. So I'm a little surprised by that.
As a baseball guy, how surprised are you that Easton Stick plays football?
I know, it's a great baseball name.
It's a perfect baseball
name. He could be sponsored by Easton. Right. Literally, just all Easton bats all the time. Stick them every day. It is a perfect baseball name. Yeah, it is unfortunate, actually. And it's unfortunate he's the Chargers' backup quarterback and not Duggan when Stick could easily be ripping doubles down the right field line. But no, instead he has to take Duggan's spot. So I'm bummed.
And put a bow on our football coverage. Of course, our touchdown Friday night game of the week. I don't think I put it in there. It says Mail visiting St. X. This is always a great game. It's a game that went to overtime last year. Mail winning that game 22-21 in overtime. They're a fun team. St. X's head coach Kevin Wallace gave Mail the ultimate compliment when I was out there. And usually when I talk to coaches and they speak in hyperbole, I kind of roll my eyes like Rick Pitino. Right. No matter who U of L was playing, they were playing the dream team.
Response.
They were playing the dream team no matter who it was. But Kevin Wallace, he said that Mail is the most complete team in 6A that he's seen so far. Wow. And I believe that. Yeah. Now, we're only 2 games into the season.
Exactly.
But from what I've seen and from just knowing what they had coming back,
it makes some sense.
It makes sense.
We saw them play Ballard this past week, and that was our game of the week. And they, quite frankly, they rolled Ballard. They won 34-3. And the big reason why, outside of the weathering the storm, literally that was
literally weathering the storm,
craziest weekend for us. Thank God we get back to a normal week, like finally next week. Knock on wood. But the fact of the matter is, Mail plays complete from the run game to the pass game. Coulter Smith really impressed me. And Max Gainey, man, that kid, he can put you over the top. He's so fun. Yeah. I talked to him today, and Gainey, he on the sideline after catching his 3rd touchdown, he was like, I got 3 like I told y'all I would. Today, he's walking out. I was like, are you going to get another 3 touchdowns? He's like, I'm going to get you 4. So
I love that kid.
We'll see. We'll see. Four against St. X. That's
especially when they didn't score 4 touchdowns in the whole game last year in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
It's a tall task.
Yeah, I love his confidence. He's, he comes off as cocky, but if you're around him, like we're around him, and he's just a nice guy.
Yeah,
he comes up, says hi to all of us, and he always knows where the camera is during the game.
Yes, he does.
He
absolutely does.
He's a great kid. It's going to be a great game. St. X is always strong on defense. Havel's going to have to take another step, I think, for St. X to be able to get to where they want to be. But it's gonna be a great game on Friday night.
St. X is going to have to step up, like you said, and, from this past week. The offense just wasn't consistent enough, and there were a lot. I was at the very tail end of the St. X Central game. One thing that stood out to me the most, St. X's defense stepped up in a lot of ways. They really did a great job containing Central's running game. And of course, when you have to contain Stone, that's one of the most difficult players in the state to cover. So the fact that they practically shut him down outside of really 2 long run plays, I was impressed by that. I will say the offense, though, there was a lot of times where they took 1 step forward, 2 steps back. It just seemed like they couldn't get anything going consistently.
Yeah, coach was upset that they just couldn't put points on the board.
Yeah, and it made sense why. They weren't picking up first downs. There were a couple turnover on downs. It was a crazy end, man, because you saw both sides really turnover on downs. And kind of ball field position wise didn't really matter all that much because you felt like even at the 30-yard line, whether it was yours or theirs, they weren't going to score either side. It just was a total defensive battle, and St. X is going to have to turn that around because Mail has scored 82 points and they've allowed only 3. So that is a huge jump as far as who they're going up against this week.
All right, and another sneaky good game that we have on Friday night is PRP at Ballard. Yeah. PRP knocked out the defending state champion Bullet East last Saturday. Ballard's coming off that loss against Mail. It's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back and see if PRP can keep the momentum going because, they lost a lot off last year's team, too. At least with Jacob Dixon, they lost their quarterback. They lost a lot off that team, but they came out and they beat Bullet East, and they lost a lot, too. But that's a big win. So that's a sneaky good game we have on Friday night.
Santana with a couple interceptions as well out there. And just ultimately, I think having that win against your defending champs, that's going to instill a lot of confidence.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big W for them to be able to take that early on in the year. We talked about measuring stick. How about defeating the team that won it all the year before? That is a good way to begin. And looking forward to kind of getting another week in action here as we start to learn more about these teams. The fun thing about high school football, and this is especially new for me just because of being new in the area, but if you want to learn about a school or learn about a team, watch the first week, the second week, the third week. You're going to learn a lot about those early on. You're not going to learn as much about them in week 6 or 7 because that's when you kind of start to get the standard of, okay, it's
who they are.
Yeah, exactly.
And the injuries start to pile up at that point.
Exactly.
But we have definitely another fun and exciting touchdown Friday night. Now, put a bowl on tonight. We can go back to a story that kind of broke yesterday. Because of who it is and because of the school, like I was talking about the Cowboys, never a dull moment.
Yeah.
Never a dull moment covering the University of Louisville. So as you all know, Nolan Smith, apparently, even though we have not confirmed this through Nolan or from anyone else, that Nolan Smith did interview for a job in the NBA G League for the Capital City Go-Go's. If you're wondering what Go-Go's is, it's a shout out to the music scene in DC. Yeah.
Nice.
But he apparently interviewed for the head coaching job. And of course, the timing of it, the whole Trenton Flowers thing, it blows up. And anybody who wants to, discredit anything going on at U of L, they gave them more fuel. Oh, so did that.
It's the first time I've ever seen that.
I forgot about that. That was very 50 Cent-ish. But
he's to basketball.
It amazes me how these basketball players can never throw a baseball. I'm like, at some point in your life, you had to throw a baseball at some point.
It never amazes me because I could throw a baseball much better than that. And shooting a basketball leads to torn ACLs for me. So,
or just rebounds.
Yeah, I'm not shocked at all. You know what, Nolan? Totally fine.
I'm glad I know Nolan enough so I can make fun of him about that next time I see him. But for me, though, the timing is kind of bad. But for one, if you're the Capital City Go-Go's, you have a coaching opening.
You're going to go for who you need.
Right. And then for him, because most likely he'll probably make more at U of L than he is there. His goal is to be a head coach. Yeah. He's got an opportunity to be a head coach. You can't get mad at him for chasing his dreams and doing what he wants to do. So you can't get too upset. I understand because the U of L has so much drama for about 15, 20 years now. Because as much as you want to say, there was never a dull moment under Rick Pitino either. But you can't. I just can't fault him for chasing his dream. I mean, the timing is bad, especially after the Trenton Flowers thing. But his ultimate goal is to be a head coach, and if that opportunity presents himself, you can't fault him for going out and chasing that dream.
The speculation is definitely interesting. The timing is interesting. I mean, like you sit here and you can't ignore the timing for what it is, but I think you're 100% right. I mean, if there's a coaching opportunity and in the G League, I mean, like regardless of where you're at, if it's a head coaching job and that's your ultimate goal, yeah, it's a step up as far as what you're trying to do to climb the ladder, right? Mm-hmm. And if that's your ultimate goal and being stationary at U of L or having this chance, I mean, you kind of got to pursue it. At the very least, pursuing it is not a bad idea.
Right. I mean, it's one of those things you at least got to listen to him. Yeah. And honestly, if he going into the interview, I'm willing to bet that Nolan probably knocked it out of the park. I'm not saying he's going to get the job, but if you talk to Nolan for 5 minutes, this is a very intelligent man. He's a Duke grad. Yeah. He's a very intelligent man. And so, if it works out for him, it works out for him. It sucks for U of L. And it sucks for me. I've got to know Nolan pretty well. But it's an opportunity. And I don't fault anybody for chasing an opportunity. And like I said, it's just the time, and it's just time. It's just bad timing, but we'll see.
In sports, too, especially in college athletics, oftentimes the good coaches are chased immediately, right? And so, you see this all the time in football. I mean, constantly coaches jumping place to place to place. You saw Garrett Riley get poached by Clemson after a good year at TCU. And it's just, in college basketball, you can't fault a coach for the same.
Bobby Petrino's the offensive coordinator for Texas A&M.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a lot of
love to hear those meetings.
It's such a weird system that he's. I would not want to be in one of those meetings.
Oh, I would.
Would you?
Not as a player.
No, I would. I would not want to be in a meeting as a player in that.
Between him and Jimbo. Oh, wow. God. I would love to be. You talk about a Hard Knock show. That's what the Hard Knocks needs to be.
He should do that. Actually, we could start that. We'll start on the side.
I don't think in a million years they'd sign up for that.
The hidden camera of Texas A&M. Kyle at Kyle Field.
Right. We're gonna wrap things up, and of course, you're hitting the road tomorrow. Yep. Safe travels to you, especially trying to get through Chattanooga. Make sure you go to Mary Mac's Tea Room if you get a chance to.
Wrote that down.
Do not go to a chain restaurant. I'm not saying anybody's name. Don't go to any chain restaurants.
If there was a beer nose, I would go, but that's not a chain, so that's a good thing.
There's a chain around here.
It's a chain around here. If there was a beer nose, I'd go.
You might be able to talk them into taking a pizza with you. Well, I might. 8 o'clock in the morning, Yannick.
That sounds good. That's perfect time for beer nose.
Beer nose ain't gonna be up. But of course we got the Cards and Georgia Tech on Friday night, 7:30. U of L, last I checked on DraftKings, was an 8-point favorite. We got UK hosting Ball State. That game kicks off at noon on Saturday. Last I checked, it was 20 plus points. And then Ohio State at number 3, Ohio State at Indiana. I did not bother checking that one. You're our gambling expert.
I know. I mean, you at that point in that game, it's so tough because if you're sitting here and you're looking at U of L's game, I think with the 8 points, that's pretty fair across the board. I would just almost go money line if we're talking U of L.
I might go under on that one, though.
It's hard to say because of the clock, man.
It's hard. And plus, this first game of the season, but 8 points. That's like 8 points. That still is essentially a home game for Georgia Tech. I think it might be more U of L fans there. But it's still, it's still a travel. 8 points on basically a road game. That seems like a lot.
And the pressure of the national audience, just so many changes as we talked about. I don't know. That's a tough bet for me. I think I would go money line per se on that instead. I feel more comfortable with money line early on as far as, and this is not gambling advice, but early on I look at it as money line is the safest option, regardless of whether you're talking about Notre Dame versus Navy or IU, Ohio State, or Florida State, LSU. Because while we think we know a lot about these teams, we really don't. We really don't yet. We will learn a lot more about them. And that's when you could start to be more comfortable about, okay, point totals. Where are we at in this? But so early on, you're talking about offenses aren't going to click early on like this, right? Like in defenses too. Like there's going to be
usually defenses ahead of the offense for the first couple games of the season.
Exactly. So I don't feel ever confident early on in week 1, week 0 for that matter from last week. You know,
I don't know how anybody bets on week 0, but I'm sure you probably have some money.
I may or may not have.
I know my
may or
teammates.
may not have.
I know my teammates. I say you all have a great weekend, and make sure you join us for Touchdown Friday Night on Friday. You'll hear from Dusty in the early leading up to the game, and of course we'll have all your highlights and post game reaction on Friday and Saturday. So for now, guess what? We have football's here, and we have a close. We got to roll the open again.
Oh, heck yes. Heck yes. Hey, thank you all so much for joining us. And more importantly, enjoy our open and our close.
Breaking down all the biggest games in our area. This is Sports Talk with Kendrick and Dusty on Wave Now. Delivered by Burrow Pizza. Yeah, it's that good.